Hi everyone, happy Palm Sunday. Hope everyone had an amazing week last week. Welcome to day 43 of the Lent Devotional series. As we begin Passion Week this week, we're going to be looking into Jesus' final days on earth and the events leading up to his sacrifice on the cross. Today's Bible portion is taken from Matthew chapter 21, verses 1 through 17. Most people know this passage as the King's triumphal entry, and we begin this passage at Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus tells two of his disciples to bring him a donkey and his colt from the village ahead of them. The disciples know this is not a good idea, but Jesus tells them that if anyone asks what they are doing, say that the Lord needs them and he will let you take them at once. Jesus is doing this to fulfill a prophecy that was stated about him in Zechariah chapter 9. The prophecy talks about a king that coming to Jerusalem, righteous and having salvation, humble and riding on a colt. The disciples brought the donkey and the colt to Jesus and put their cloaks on the donkey for Jesus to mount on and ride into Jerusalem. As Jesus was entering Jerusalem, a large crowd came to witness it. The people were throwing cloaks on the ground and throwing palm tree branches to extol him, crying out, Hosanna, Hosanna the Son of David. As Jesus entered Jerusalem, the city was in uproar, asking, Who is this? The crowd answered that he is Jesus, a prophet from Nazareth in Galilee. People were shouting, Blessed is who he comes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna in the highest. They were calling Jesus a king and is begging him to save them, as it says in the prophecy. They believe that Jesus has come to save them from the Roman oppression and that a son of David would be Messiah and reign on the eternal throne. When he comes into Jerusalem, Jesus goes straight to the temple where he is flipping tables over because the people in the temple were making God's house of prayer into a marketplace, or as Jesus says, they're making God's house of prayer into a den of robbers. The people in the temple were ripping off other people who were buying their items or animals. They were using it as a shortcut instead of a house of prayer, and the temple became a place where making money was its top priority and worship became its least priority. After Jesus ran the thieves out of the temple, he began to heal people, which is what Jesus wanted the people to use the temple for in the first place, a place where they can draw near to God for worship, healing, and forgiveness. Jesus is fulfilling what is prophesied in Malachi chapter 3, verses 1. And you would think that the chief priests in the temple should be ready to improve their ways and follow the ways of Christ. But as they're seeing Jesus heal people and the children crying out, Hosanna the Son of David, they became exacerbated and jealous. The priest calls out Jesus in a blasphemous way, and Jesus replied with, Have you not read from the lips of children and infants, You, Lord, have called forth your praise? Jesus just quoted Psalms 8:2 to show the children giving praise to God's glory through recognizing Jesus as God come down to earth as a human. After this, Jesus went to the city of Bethany where he spent the night there. To me, this passage is about the expectations and disappointment that the people of Jerusalem face and the ones we face in our lives. The people in Jerusalem expected a king that would save them from the oppression from the Romans, but they didn't realize the real oppression they were facing was from sin. And because they couldn't see that Jesus was the true king that the scriptures were foretelling, they called for his crucifixion. We expect things to go perfect for us, and if it doesn't, we blame God. But just know that God's plan is more beautiful than any disappointment any of us will ever go through. Another thing I get from this passage is that we have our own den of robbers. That is the worldly things that we seek to satisfy. The need to satisfy our worldly desires is a problem that almost all of us go through. And if we fall into those desires, it will start to take over our lives. And as soon as we know it, we start losing focus on what truly matters, which is the glory of God, and start trying to meet the standards of the world and its evilness. So that means try not to make your house and your church a den of robbers. Make his place holy and try to attract people to God and not distract them from God. Christ wants us to have a heart that thirsts for God, and he wants us to love him and put our lives in his hands. If there are things or even people that is just taking your attention away from God, try to create some boundaries and barriers from them. And if you're struggling with this, put trust in God, because he will know what to do and he will know what is best for you. As this Lent season is coming to an end, we should ask ourselves, am I going to church for the right intentions? Am I being like the merchants who only came to the temple to make money? Am I going to church because it's a routine in my life that I do every Sunday morning? Am I going there just to see my friends and hang out with them? Or am I actually going to church to draw closer to God and worship Him? I thank you all for taking the time out of your day to listen to this devotion, and I hope you all have a blessed week ahead of you.